We want to bring in former Whitewater independent counsel and former federal prosecutor himself, Robert Ray. Robert, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
I want to get your take on a special prosecutor brought in here. But first, who do you think would be a good fit to lead the FBI?
I think I agree with Senator Graham. We need to return to someone not political. That doesn't necessarily mean someone within the FBI, but it does mean someone that can be confirmed and that has a reputation for being independent. And the job was designed that way. In the wake of J. Edgar Hoover, we have a Congress that imposed a 10-year term. It's intended to stretch over more than one administration, and for that reason, it's intended to garner the type of support that would carry over into a presidency from one party to another.
I think you make a really good point. Now, Rod Rosenstein, who is the Deputy Attorney General, people are debating what he should have done or should have said in terms of that memo that he sent about Jim Comey. Do you think he needs to bring in a special prosecutor?
I have said for some time the answer is, at least at this point, is no. Until there is credible evidence to suggest collusion and that it was orchestrated at the top ranks of the Trump campaign, my view is that it's still premature. There's no question, though, that the firing of Jim Comey has increased pressure, as it would be expected to have done, and I'm sure the president was advised of that before he made the decision. There's no question that it increases the pressure on Mr. Rosenstein to at least consider whether a special prosecutor is warranted.
Well, what do you guys think? I mean, you have to question the idea that we still don't have any evidence of this so-called collusion between Trump and the Russians. No evidence of it, and yet this investigation keeps on going now in its 10th month. Meanwhile, there's no investigation that we know of about the unmasking and about the leaking.
Well, the other problem, of course, is that the firing of Jim Comey, I think as the president himself has acknowledged, is going to slow that investigation until a replacement is found, which is, I think, why he's so anxious by the end of the week, if it's possible, to name his appointee and submit the name to the Senate for confirmation. Look, I mean, I had a job where my charter was prompt, responsible, and cost-effective by statute. Emphasis, I think, on the first word, which is prompt. And so it's gone on a while. And look, if you take the president at his word, and I think we should, that there will be no evidence found of collusion, then he's entitled to an expeditious resolution of that, as well as the country. We don't need to be saddled with this for too much longer, and people need to get to it.
Absolutely.
An FBI director needs to be found. The investigation needs to go forward, and it's either there or it's not there.
Right.
And then release the findings, and let's get on and, with the business of the country.
One of the things that I think is so hard about this is, how do you prove the negative? How do you prove the absence, like nothing happened? When there's so much narrative out there, so much chatter, so much fodder, people don't necessarily even know what they're talking about. There's collusion, Russia. What is the issue? So how do they put it to bed? Well,
political vacuums, just as you suggest, are dangerous, and in some sense it's hard to prove the negative. On the other hand, talking about a criminal investigation, you either have evidence that's proof beyond a reasonable doubt that somebody committed crime, and if somebody did commit a crime, then they need to be held to account, and we need to get on with it. If they didn't, and there's insufficient evidence of that, then you need to say so and wrap it up and move on.
If there were a shred of evidence, it would be out, because now all the 17 agencies share information, they share raw data. If they had this much evidence of collusion,
Maria, I mean,
it would be out.
I think that's right.
This is a charade of an investigation.
I think that's right, but that's what you have investigations to determine.
Right.
And in a prompt, responsible, and cost-effective manner, you get to it, and you find out one way or another.
You know, a lot of people have made the point that you're making. This new FBI director cannot be a partisan figure. In order for the American people to have faith in this investigation,
right,
it's got to be somebody who's independent, who's neutral. How does the Senate's ability to go nuclear impact that independence of the FBI director?
Well, the fact is of course, that if the Republicans are united and get behind a nominee, they don't need Democratic support in order to get an FBI director in place. Now, whether or not that's wise, I think, is another question. Look, I think the country always rises to the occasion with regard to big matters. Replacing an FBI director, no matter what your views about Jim Comey or what the president did, that's a big matter. Why? Because it's intended to be, in some sense, above politics because of the power that the FBI director wields. And it's intended to be a 10-year term, which means you're picking somebody that you're going to have last, presumably in the job, into the next administration, no matter what happens.
Right.
So, I believe that bipartisan support in connection with a big matter involving the country is important. So yes, technically, while you're correct in an environment where you only need, after the nuclear option, 51 votes to get somebody confirmed is possible. It's not desirable. It's probably not in the best interest of the country. I think bipartisan support would be a desirable result.
But what you said probably is going to get confirmed, somebody who's with law enforcement, somebody who has, investigative chops as opposed to political chops.
I mean, I think that's right. You could pick a senator who might, be readily confirmed. You could pick a judge. But, really the job of being an FBI director is to be an investigator.
Law enforcement.
Law enforcement, whether, that comes from the prosecutorial ranks or the investigative ranks. You try to fill the job with somebody who can actually do the job, not just because they can be confirmed or readily confirmed.
What do you think about Ray Kelly?
Well, I think he's clearly got the investigative chops, and he clearly has experience. And he clearly has experience involving terrorism and international matters. So, that's a relevant factor. Before, like John Kennedy used to say, before you tear the fence down, find out why it was put up. We had a lot of things in Jim Comey. You got to find somebody who was of that caliber.
That's a great point. Robert, good to see you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Robert Ray joining us there.